I'm Chris Hartshorn, the Chief Research Officer at Lux Research, and with me today I've got David Klanecky, the Head of Strategy and Corporate Development at Albemarle,
yes.
Which is a role you've taken up probably in the last few months, last 8 months or so,
Yep.
so I'm sure it's been lively for you.
Yeah.
One of the first questions I have is, how do you tie, with strategy in your title, and coming from a technical background as I know you do,
Yeah.
how do you tie the strategy that you're trying to develop to the vision that that Albemarle leadership has? I mean, give me a feel for the synergy between those two things.
Yeah, I think the nice thing that if I look at Albemarle and what the focus has been, especially since I came in, Lou Kassam, our CEO, has really tried to refocus the organization with a very heavy innovation focus. But also create some real distinct strategies from the different global business units that we have. So we have the catalyst business unit, and then we have our specialty chemicals business unit. And really what the nice thing is, I was able to come in kind of on the front end of really helping to form that organization, as well as work with the two different business units on strategy and how that rolls up to the overall corporate strategy what we're trying to achieve. So there's a lot of work between the two different business units with the corporate team on where do they want to grow, what do they want to focus on, strengths, weaknesses, all those kind of things. And then we basically use that to kind of formulate what our overall corporate strategy, and then use that to drive what are our aspirations in terms of, financial aspirations, innovation aspirations, things like that. So that kind of helped us really crystallize what our corporate strategy is. And they're fairly simple. It's, grow and expand our catalyst business, continue to defend and look at new applications for our bromine franchise, which is in the specialty chemical area. So those are some of the key things that really, as we started to work with those two business units, that helped to crystallize the overall strategy for the company.
Right. And in terms of it's a very old company, it's a relatively established company in the big picture of things, and relatively early in the value chain as well, which is actually a really challenging position to innovate from. Established company early in a value chain. How are you thinking about that problem from an innovation perspective? Because it's one of the toughest places to innovate from.
Yeah, it's interesting because my previous life with Dow for 20 years, when we always thought we were far from the value chain in some of the areas that we operate in. And I think Albemarle in some areas is even further back than Dow in certain aspects or certain applications and markets. And I think that's been one of the key things in my role in terms of strategy and corporate development, is really looking at, from a strategic market perspective, as we work with the businesses and define new business development opportunities, is look at that value chain, try to get deeper down instead of just going one or maybe two steps down the value chain. Really try to understand some of the specific needs of the end users and things like that. And that, quite honestly, I don't think had been really a core competency of the organization prior to that. In the catalyst space, a lot of really, real good understanding of refineries and different things like that. But I think in some of the other areas, we didn't go far enough, Albemarle didn't go far enough down that value chain to truly understand what was driving it. We listen to our customers, have a really good working relationship with our key customers and do well there. But as we all know, our customers, sometimes they don't know what they don't know, right? And getting further down that value chain helps you to articulate where there may be some opportunity and value that you can even provide to the customer that they don't even know. So, in doing that, you can tie that back into what's true innovation, because the further you go down the value chain, I think the more innovative you can be, in all honesty, right? You may be innovative for your customer if you're only working with them, but if you go further down, I think you have a much bigger impact in the value chain itself, and that really can drive more value for you back at the front end.
Yeah, so it's really about broadening the lens and getting to voice of your customer's customer in a lot of ways.
Right.
That probably needs new tools, and it probably needs new culture as well. So what are some of the tools and some of the tool changes and some of the cultural changes that maybe you're even just having to work on installing today? I mean, how are you changing the game to make that happen?
Well, and I think when we looked at the organization when I came in, we looked at the entire organization, and I think they did a really good job of understanding some of the specific markets that they were in. But if you look at market intelligence to some extent, I don't really like that word, but let's just use it as a framework. It's not only about understanding your customers and not only understanding your competition. It's about understanding disruptors out there. It's understanding the different technology threats that are out there. I mean, there's a whole spectrum of things that go beyond just understanding your customer and your competition. And I think what we tried to do is that in itself allows you to have a little bit broader look of the industry that you're playing in and what some of the drivers, the external drivers are going to be that would appreciate technology that you may be able to develop. So we internally first had to look at what are our core competencies, what are we really good at, and how can that apply to some of those things beyond just what our customers tell us and what we see our competition doing, and try to match those things up. So I think we really stepped back and said, okay, we have to go beyond what we've been doing today. Let's use that as a building block, but let's go a little bit further and understand some of the market dynamics that are out there. And I'm not talking just mega trends, because we all know the mega trends, and everybody pays a lot of money for those reports. But I think look beyond that and really try to take a look at what are some of the things that are coming down the pipeline that you may not see in your existing industry or your existing market, but may be adjacent to that, right?
Right.
And the easy example is the shale stuff, and people use that a lot in terms of how it's transforming. We can transform the polyolefin industry and different things like that. But there are some good examples of where we've done that as well that have allowed us to kind of take a little bit of a different approach, and also try to understand really what's the value that we provide, right? Because a lot of times it's like, well, we want to improve a catalyst, or we want to improve a compound in flame retardants, or whatever it may be, right? And instead of we understand what the value is to our customers. That's one way to look at it, and you can extract value there. But really understanding, what does that do to the industry? Does it drive change in the industry that would get maybe one of our most important customers a better position, right? So how do you work that through the value chain to extract value there?
Right, got it. So in terms of technology or market or business model, what are you excited about right now? I mean, what do you think is, it's like, yeah, that's what I want to be doing right now. This is great for us. We're going to charge at that.
Yeah. The most exciting thing for me is that we have a mission to grow, and it's not only organic, we have a mission to look at acquisition opportunities and things like that. And I think,
is that new? Is that kind of a new thing?
Fairly new. I mean, I think Albemarle's looked at it over the past. We haven't done a real major acquisition since about 2007.
Yeah, right.
We had a couple small ones here and there, but nothing that's really kind of transformed or really added a significant chunk of revenue or earnings. So there's kind of a renewed focus of really, let's look at some core opportunities that are out there, and I think there's quite a few out there that build on our strengths, that can build on the catalyst franchise or the bromine franchise, things like that. So that's probably the most exciting thing for me, is that we have an organization that's dedicated really to look at those opportunities for acquisitions. The other thing from a market perspective, I mean, it's a good time to be a specialty chemical company right now, right? In the United States especially. But I think globally, there's the market is starting to reward companies that are driving growth and are showing consistent earnings. So that also is positive from the momentum that we can achieve with that.
Right.
Those are the things. I mean, the whole marketplace of energy, water, and food. I mean, those are the key areas that I think if you stay in those, you're in pretty good shape going forward. But I really, from an individual perspective and from our company perspective, I think the most exciting thing is our ability to grow and the drive at the top to do that.
Let's go forward 10 years. What would victory look like for you in your role? When you're looking at corporate strategy, when you're looking at corporate development. 10 years from now, what defines victory for you?
Yeah, I think a couple immediate things would be that we do pull off some very, and I would say transformational, not that it would change our focus in terms of what we're doing, but transformational acquisitions that we do. So would really build on the strength of what I mentioned earlier around catalysts and bromine, balance our portfolio out in those areas, and really, kind of give us the view of a real strong specialty chemicals company, right? And when I say that, I mean not only the technology portfolio that we would have, but the earnings potential that we would have, and the growth opportunities that we see going forward, right? I think, we're in the right areas. I think if we can execute some of those things really well over the next 5 years at a minimum, I think it's going to position us really well. And if you look 10 years, I think I know what our vision is, and I think the biggest thing for me is if I could look back and see that our organization, quite honestly, has had a major role in transforming that to meet those goals of being a really top specialty chemical company in the world, I would feel really good about that. That would be definition of success for me, is that our organization has had the ability and has had the impact of doing that.
Yeah, I'm presuming at your size with less resources than in your previous life.
Yeah.
probably going to take a lot of creativity and a lot of using outside influences and outside resources to get that done. So that's probably got to be a big part of the strategy, is looking outside rather than inside to get the job done.
Absolutely. Hence why we use Lux Research.
Oh, there it is. And that sounds like a great way to finish. So, hey, Dave, best of luck with the journey at Albemarle. And thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.